Good morning and happy Wednesday, happy midweek. Welcome to the show on Western Spring Television. My name is Emmanuel Ujadigile. Morning Spring is what you're watching, where we bring it to you as it is. We'll tell you what is happening around you and in all these spheres as they affect you as a person living in Nigeria, as a Nigerian or an expatriate. All of the government policies and polity, all the decisions and decision makers and those who are in the news, we help you make sense of them and put them in better perspective. Thank you for starting your morning with us. We're reaching you live from StarTimes channel 190 on the DGT platform. You can also follow all of our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WSTV_NG for Twitter. You can also check us out on YouTube, follow us there, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and so you can follow up all of the conversations or even follow live when you have the ability and time to do so. It's a beautiful day. It's a day after one of the major controversies in Nigeria has now been laid to rest. And that's taken a couple of days, couple of hours. But that controversy has now ended yesterday. You get to know what that is in the course of the show. But then, welcome on board.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us on the Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. I'm Temitope Ajijola Ola.
We have the papers for you this morning, and we'll be taking them to show you what's happening, the stories that are making the rounds, the what people are talking about really at this time, especially seeing as this is election year, this is election period, and they say that the electioneering process doesn't end until after all of the cases have been dispensed with in the courts. And so we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the papers this morning. All right, welcome back to the show. Let's start with the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper is what we'll start with. The banner headline says, Adamawa governorship, Fintiri floors Binani, INEC takes Rex case to Buhari, as on second page of that paper. And at the writers say, Fintiri polls 430,861 votes to defeat APC candidate, 13 others, PDP supporters jubilate. I didn't pay 2 billion naira for declaration, says Binani, as court rejects request to stop result. INEC asks SGF to report Rec to Buhari. IG orders Gombe CP to oversee Adamawa post-poll security. And you can see pictures, 3 pictures there of the declaration of the result and the aftermath of the declaration of the result. A very interesting one there.
Yes, I'm not quite comfortable though with the headline saying that INEC takes Rex case to Buhari. I just think that it should be at the court, and that's where it should be.
It should be what?
At the court.
Well,
And everything should be decided from there.
Well, no, because Buhari is in charge of their appointment, so they have to first take that issue to him, then he recommends through the SGF what are actions to take. That's a problem with having so much power reside the president. Some things that should be sorted out at institutional level still have to go high up to him.
So we're talking about the Rex appointment, but not the case itself.
No, the case and the appointment are the same. You can't take him to court yet. The person who put him there has to be aware. So after that, then.
All right.
Well, still on the Punch newspaper this morning. Page 3, things fall apart in Warri. Things fall apart in Warri. If you've been following that story, some very interesting things happening in Warri Kingdom. The Olu of Warri, Ogiame Atuachi III, being at variance with the Logoseri of the kingdom, Ayure Mami, and some other persons who think or who believe that Ayiri Imam is still entitled to being the Prime Minister of the kingdom. But the Olu of Warrior has named another person, having told Ayiri to take up his father's title, but the young billionaire, rejected that and stormed out of the palace during the meeting over the weekend in company of some persons. But then other persons who were there, including former governor of Delta State, Emmanuel Udwanga, waited till the end of the meeting. But things are not really rosy for the young monarch there in Warri, Delta State at the moment. I hope personally that he comes out of it and finds a way to settle the whole issue. But I do not understand what Ayiri Imam is doing. He fought against the emergence of the current Olu of Warri, and so if you fought against my emergence as monarch, it doesn't stand to reason that you want to be my prime minister or be second in command to me. It's just common sense. You have to go. I can't keep such an enemy in my close circle, And he also wanted to play a fast one. Normally, when there is a new king, there's a need to revalidate their chieftaincy. You come submit your sword and your beads. He came, submitted a sword and some beads, requested for the title of Olobosere, but he wasn't given, only to take reporters to his house and tell them that he submitted fake beads and all whatever you. But the question is, you have, according to tradition, you have taken this step. You have recognized the leadership of the monarch. You have surrendered your titles to him. So whether or not you surrendered fake beads or fake sword, as your business. But then I hope that the Olu of Warri can get out of this debacle as soon as possible.
Can hold again.
Yes, and the center can hold again. Elders are trying to intervene, including the former president of Christian Association of Nigeria, Ayo Oshejafo, were trying to mend fences. But I read the statement of the Olu of Warri was a strongly worded statement where he was saying that his word as king is final. He has tried to make peace, but peace has to be made on the terms of the king. And I believe that if we have any modicum of respect for traditional institutions, that's how it should be. If you are adherent to the monarch, you don't make peace with the monarch on your own terms. It is on the terms of, because you are a subject. No matter how wealthy you are, no matter how well traveled you are still subject to the authority of the king. So you cannot, and the king cannot yield or cede to your demands. You have to be the one to yield. And it's just, I don't know what Ayiri Imam is all about or what he's trying to play at, but his father has a title that he can't take up. There is a new prime minister. Just, follow authority and everywhere will be fine. But then it is well.
They usually leave power just like that.
Yes, that's what I've noticed. It's intoxicated. Especially, it is much of a ridicule for him actually.
Yeah. Because
I followed the whole story from the beginning of
the installation.
Yes, before his coronation, he was a strong opponent to the emergence of Ogiame III. But the wishes of man sometimes aren't the wishes of God or the gods, as the case may be now. So you failed in your bid to stop his emergence. You do not expect him as a person to keep you.
Common sense.
I want to buy food. Someone has sabotaging my effort. Finally, I get food, and now this person says, "Can I get a spoon?" And get a spoon where? How? Why? You can't do that. So I hope that I really love the monarch. Is a young monarch. Yes, taking that. It's not saying that because I'm a young person and all of that. Royalty. Yes, royalty is royalty. You submit to the authority of the king. We've seen presidents prostrate before kings. So who are you? You're just a billionaire. Any other billionaire. Okay, so let's move on to pages 4 and 5. Husband tackles Lagos hospital as wife dies after childbirth. This is a very serious case that I hope not just the husband now, but other authorities, government can take up. Some complications arose. The man is alleging that is due to negligence and all of that. Well, let's hope that he gets justice.
Gets justice, yes.
On page 41, NTAA probes Lagos Amsterdam flight stowaway uncovered in Schiphol. When I hear stowaways, what comes to my mind is how do they survive?
Yeah.
How do you
How
survive?
did they get there? Was there no checks?
How did they get there first?
Regular
Yes.
checks.
But then how do you survive the temperature change? The change in gravity, how people in the aircraft sometimes have issues with taking off and landing.
Well, what I've learned is desperacy can make you endure anything. You're just desperate, you can survive in any condition. And that's what the Nigerian situation and all other situations, in fact, when you hear cases like this, what it can cause. But then the real question should be, how did they get there?
How did they breach security?
Yes, and then there should be regular checks. So, I mean, we've been having cases like this over time, and you already know these hideouts. You should always just check them. I think it should be standard procedure. It should be
standard procedure. Well, above the nameplate, striking workers begin airport shut down next week. The 2-day warning strike by workers of the airport ended yesterday, and they're saying now that they will start a total shutdown by next week if their demands are not met.
So it means that the authorities have today, tomorrow, and Friday to do their bidding, or at least to reach some sort of compromise. And if that does not happen, well, I think that was a demonstration, of what will happen next week, and in a bigger version. So the government should either, reach some sort of compromise with them, or look forward to what will happen next week. And it's not going to be palatable. And we don't even know how many weeks that would take, or months.
Well, we will be waiting to see what happens. By the way, this week seems to be very slow. It's just Wednesday. I mean, by this time last week, we're on Friday. So. And on page 27, Shell removes 460 illegal connections on Trans-Niger pipeline. 460 illegal connections. Imagine how much oil is siphoned a day from 460 illegal connections. You never can tell how long those connections have been there for. Well, on page 8, we hope that the government continues to make effort to stop oil theft. On page 8, National Assembly leadership, APC working committee awaits Tinubu at Adamu's meeting. The lobbying is still on. The advertorials have been flooding pages of papers. Everybody putting their best foot forward in the race to become Senate President, Deputy Senate President, Speaker of the House of Reps, Deputy Speaker.
Just to grab some sort of post.
Yes, all of this committee chairmanship and secretaryship, as it were. But APC is yet to decide. APC is yet to zone all of those things. They are waiting for a meeting, the outcome. By the time they're done with that, I'm sure that ordinary Nigerians will see the truth and will see who will be taking what in the National Assembly.
And we have just a little over a month to the swearing-in ceremony on May 29th.
But that's all on the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, quickly to the Daily Trust newspaper. And the Daily Trust says, Fintiri wins Adamawa governorship election. And here are the riders. We are all winners, says governor. And INEC seeks prosecution of REC. Binani denies bribing electoral officer 2 billion naira. Well, that's on page 4. So having the back and forth in Adamawa State.
Yeah, I don't expect that. I don't expect
going
that.
to allude to the fact that
I did bribe. No, it's not going to work.
All right, but on page 7, look for Shawwal moon tomorrow. Sultan urges Muslims. Well, it's what now, 27th day of the Ramadan or something, and
28th day.
28 today. And so if Ramadan is 30 days, well, it will end on Friday. But if it's 29, that's tomorrow. And then the Sultan is already urging Muslims to look out for the moon tomorrow. So if the moon is sighted tomorrow, then it means that's the end of Ramadan. We can always we also wish the Muslim faithfuls, a happy Ramadan season, and the breaking of the fast and the whole celebrations. And then on page 17, POS operator arrested for spending 280 million naira mistakenly sent to his account. POS operator arrested for spending 280 million naira mistakenly sent to his account. Page 17. Emmanuel, how ridiculous. You spent money that you could not account for.
Well, that's not even my own problem. My problem with that is, in this, you see, when people commit crimes, they are so desperate that they don't, the most common things that could expose them are not factored in. 280 million naira is not 2,800. You can't run away. You have your BVN linked to your bank account. On your BVN, there's your information there, your address, your date of birth, everything about you is on your BVN. There is no way, even if you run out of the country, you will still be found.
The BVN is also on the passport now.
I mean, it's just common sense. There was no way he could have been able to spend 200, and then how do you spend 280 million naira? All of that money.
And you could not. No.
That is not yours.
Yes.
I am beginning to think that he bought a house, that he bought cars, because that's the only rational explanation for spending 280 million naira. A house, maybe a house of 50 million.
And it must have been during this cash crunch.
Yes.
And then, so that's just 4 months, like it must be this year too. Within 4 months, 280 million naira.
I'm trying to do the mathematics now.
Yes. How much did you spend per time?
Say a house, 70 million, a car, 50. You can't even buy a car, 50 million, maybe 10 million. But you can't even spend, I mean, if you want to be a spendthrift, the most you can spend is 100 million. I mean, 200, that's 300 million, just a little shy of 300 million naira. And then you spend everything.
Well,
that's why they say crime really has no logic. Sometimes you cannot rationalize certain things. It doesn't make sense to you. People commit crimes and you're wondering, what were you thinking? Why would you see, if I see 10,000 naira in my account, it's not even something I can gloss over because it's not my money. I don't know who sent it. I don't know why they sent it.
That's the point. So, why it was sent is one of the reasons, one of the factors to look to. You don't know why. It might be some sort of laundry. You don't even know. Or some sort of stowaway to keep in your account for a period. So you should know that money,
whoever owns it will come after you.
Yes, it will be tracked. And so you should, no, it should be prosecuted. Another thing that has led to this kind of behavior is the part of religion too, where we pray and say, I want miracles, I want to count money. I was seeing a video yesterday, let's digress a little, of a man who was preaching and was saying that if your phone is here and your battery is low, I command your phones to charge. And then there was a cut and jump to the next scene, and the person, it was a real life church. The man was saying, this woman was here, her battery was low, but as you said, let all batteries be charged. Her battery became new, the phone was charged. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, can we not do this? Can we not go?
this is a very ridiculous thing. And so when people say, as you enter this week, may you receive a miracle alert, money that you didn't expect, money from any angle, may it jump into your account. If only we knew that these clerics are putting us here, praying their congregation into jails. I don't think anyone will say
Praying them
amen.
into jails.
Amen.
Well, it does happen that someone out of nowhere will send you money.
Someone
That's
you know.
Actually,
Someone you know.
yeah, someone you know, but
Who
you
just
were not
remembers
expecting
you.
money
Yes,
from.
who
It does
remembers you.
happen,
Yes.
and sometimes it's out of nowhere. It just came, but you could not. You have to know who sent you money per time before you spent the money. I mean,
And the
it
amount,
could be
I mean,
some
I don't
miracle.
expect anyone to send me to it.
immediately.
Why? I have not
I mean,
done
I will
it.
go to the bank and verify. Please track this money for me. Where is it from? What's the name on the account? Let me know. And so I would make my own findings. But I'm sure he never even stepped out.
He just
didn't
wanted
even-
to spend.
Yes, and he's a POS operator.
He wants to ball.
So one of your customers could have done that and is waiting to come to you to say, oh, I sent you money. I want to be getting them. I don't know. You shouldn't just spend money like that. That's criminal. And I mean, it's criminal minded though.
Yeah, and that's why he's been arrested.
Yes, and the courts would know what to do. But moving from that story to page 8, Buhari meets emirs, clerics in Saudi Arabia. Well, all these meetings, they met with some political gladiators. Now he's meeting with emirs and clerics in Saudi Arabia. I just hope that they are emirs of Saudi Arabia or clerics of Saudi Arabia, and that the meeting is unofficial though. But then we really can't say. We don't know the true picture of that. But that's all the story we have on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
On The Guardian, very quickly, all eyes on judiciary as Nigerians await hearing of election petitions. That's on page 6 of The Guardian
There's no
newspaper.
better way to put it. All eyes are really on the judiciary. We're all waiting. Everyone is waiting to know what becomes of all of these election petitions. People really want to get answers, and that's even the last hope of the common man to know what happens.
Well, we all wait to see what happens really in the coming days. On page 6, still, Finty relapse last, reckless wreck faces persecution.
Reckless wreck.
He was indeed reckless and didn't think his actions through. And court voids Oluwamo's parks and garages, revalidates RTEAN, Road Transport Employees Association of Nigeria. That's on Metro page 8 there. And at the bottom strip, AKK pipeline abandoned over alleged 570% inflated contract sum. It's on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. The front page is quite scanty this morning.
Yes. Well, that's all on The Guardian.
That's all on The Guardian.
On the Nation newspaper, the headline says INEC, IG, Hamarek, CP as court holds Binani, and the riders Fintiri as Adamawa governor-elect. Binani, I didn't pay 2 billion naira bribe, as expected to be said or to be heard. Well, on page 2, just above that, Ogun, Imo, Benue, 4 other states miss out in federal government's 45 billion naira COVID-19 grant. Ogun, Imo, Benue, and 4 other states miss out in federal government's 45 billion naira COVID-19 grant. And that's on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. Just below that story, court clears arson president of human trafficking charges. That's on page 4. Court clears arson president of human trafficking charges. And just above the nameplate, aviation unions threatened indefinite strike. Negotiation begins. Well, I think this is giving us more, insight into the issue here. They're threatening indefinite strike now, and then negotiation is going to begin. But my point, what I worry about in the nation is the fact that we have to be pushed to a certain level. We have to be pushed to the wall, or the government has to be pushed to the wall before they take some particular action. I don't think that's good enough. We shouldn't have a government. We don't deserve to have a government that is that detached from the plight of her people. We don't have to have that. But on page 4 of the Nation newspaper, Labour Party next sacks acting chair Apapa, 4 orders, and that NWC tenure extended. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. NBA 6 release of its abducted ex-president Wali, and 84,000 candidates sit for rescheduled mock UTME. And that's on page 26 of the Nation newspaper. And just below that, DMO reports Nigeria defaulting in Chinese loan repayment. Nigeria defaulting in Chinese loan repayments. That's according to the Debt Management Office. Well, just beside our story, court voids NNPCL board's decision in last 15 months. Ararome reinstated, awarded 5 billion naira damages.
Some interesting stories there this morning.
Yes.
Those are the papers that we have for you. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have a guest ready for you.
Èdè Yorùbá jẹ́ ọ̀kan lára àwọn èdè tí wọ́n ń sọ ní agbègbè Niger Congo. Èdè Yorùbá gbajúgbajà ní àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè tó ń bẹ ní ẹkùn ìwọ̀ oòrùn ilẹ̀ adúláwọ̀.
The 1914 Amalgamation Treaty is synonymous to the birth of Nigeria. Frederick Lugard, a British Army captain and an outlaw who struck gold in Africa, became the instrument used by destiny to make it happen. The amalgamation of Nigeria was designed for economic reasons by the colonial administration to offset Northern Protectorate budget deficit by Southern Protectorate surplus returns. The amalgamation had ad initio created imbalance in the economic political structure of Nigeria and was responsible for the persistent hiccups in the efforts to forge a united country till today. Nigeria's amalgamation was labeled as the mistake of 1914 by native northern conservatives who neither wanted it nor contributed anything significant to its sustenance. Western Spring Television identifies with Amalgamation Treaty of 1914 as a watershed event in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in the multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us, for staying with us, if you've been with us, and for joining us if you're just tuning in to StarTimes channel 190 on the DTT platform, or if you're just following on all our social media handles. It's Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, where we bring it to you as it is. We're joined by our guest this morning. Mr. Dapo Ogunwusi is a legal practitioner and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Well, good morning. From your point of view as a legal practitioner, what do you make of the whole crisis, to put it that way, that arose on Sunday from that controversial declaration by the resident electoral commissioner of INEC in Adamawa State?
Well, first let's look at the facts before the law. The facts are that 10 local government areas had already been collated and reported, and the entire team adjourned till 11 a.m. the following morning. But by 9 a.m., the resident electoral commissioner, affirming himself as self-appointed returning officer, went ahead to declare a winner. It turned out that first, he didn't have the power or the capacity to make such a declaration because there was actually a returning officer appointed for that role. Secondly, he just wasn't telling the truth. But you see, if you look at the reports, all the agencies of security were present, even where this infamy was being carried out. And it's a very good commentary on the present face of the nation. You see, the Yoruba will say that if you come back from war and you claim you killed 6 of your enemies, and then you get home and slaughtered 6 chicken, you hit 6 wraps of eko, and hit all of it together, then it is clear that if people didn't see you doing your exploits at war, then your activities at home stand out and bear you witness. There's no running away from the fact that the nation has been mangled psychologically by the experience, even physically, by the experience of the ongoing electoral processes. It is so sad. Look, I could understand people stuffing ballot boxes. I could understand people changing figures. I could in fact understand a lot more. But you will see wholesale dishonesty at every stage. And at the end of the day, the people in whose interest these elections are being staged are the last consideration, and they are the biggest losers. It is really tragic. Now let's go to the law. The process for declaring who is the winner in an election is already clear in the INEC guidelines. And I want to tell you that they just abandon the processes and make their own declaration. Now, INEC is trying to wash itself clean. They have made a different declaration now from Abuja, I guess. I think they empowered the returning or the proper returning officer to make the correct declaration, and then they declare that the opponent won. That opponent's name, I think, is Fintiri. This Binani makes things really sad because she's a woman. And everybody was expecting that we should have a female governor for the first time. I mean, a properly elected female governor. Looks like that opportunity we have to wait for some time later in the future.
All right. So now let's now look at the points of law now by you know, the wreck and the misnomer that occurred on that day. What could have been the result had it been allowed to stand?
Well, first of all, you are not too sure that it's not going to stand. Because
I'm talking about the declaration of Sunday now.
I know you are not too sure that it's not going to stand, and I will explain that to you. The declaration by the resident electoral commissioner the error was internal. It has nothing to do with the voters. It has nothing to do with the candidates. It's an internal headache. And I suspect very strongly that this woman will challenge the result and try to canvass the fact that, look, I was declared winner, even though she could not justify the figures. I think on the legal front, that is not going to be the end of the story. That is my opinion.
What about the angle to read that she was declared winner while the votes were still being collated?
Look, at whatever stage the declaration took place, there was an official document saying she won.
What was there an official?
Rigging is not.
Mr. Ogusi, was there an official document? Because from the video we saw, the man did not read out any figures. He did not read out any statistics. He just came and made a pronouncement. There was no pointer to how he arrived at that conclusion. Isn't that a flaw in the process in itself?
First of all, that video itself is a document. It is electronically generated document. Now, as regards the presentation of figures and so on and so forth, those are just internal arrangements within INEC itself. I foresee a long battle on that particular issue, but I hope at the end of the day that decency will prevail, because it's just so scandalous. It's like we are hope for wholesale scandal and scam. So as regards whether a document exists or not, of course he was reading something, and whatever he was reading was some sort of document, and the video itself is some sort of electronic document.
Okay, I'm hoping that our producers can get us that video again, so we'll take a look at it. The man simply walked into the hall You know, that
Yes.
video that we showed on Monday, was Monday.
I saw it.
Yes, 17th of April. He just came in. He wasn't reading from any paper. He was talking straight from his head. He did not give the figures from which local government. He did not give which figures from which polling unit. And then looking at the facts that returning officers for those local government areas were supposed to have, come out to have spoken about it, and they didn't do that. Where does that stand in the place of law?
Those are internal arrangements within the INEC. I think that whatever was done was not procedural. I have no problem with that. But when you look at how plastic the rule of law has become in Nigeria, I'm very sure that's not the end of the story. And you take a look at what the woman did almost immediately. She went to court to say she had been declared. And you know the truth, when you declare somebody as a winner of anything in Nigeria, that's probably what the situation is. Because look back to the presidential election. There were prescriptions for BIVAS and for IREF in the guidelines. Those prescriptions were not followed. There was the issue of 25% in Abuja. They didn't seek legal opinion. They just declared this so motu in the wee hours of a day. So you can see there's just a tendency towards crass lawlessness. And as I said earlier, one rigging is not better than the other. I think everything is sui generis with INEC and the way they see the Nigerian electorate.
Well, I still want to take you up on the whole declaration thing coming out from Adamawa State. That case in court yesterday was not heard by the court. The court elected not to hear that suit over some issues, including that of jurisdiction. And some lawyers have also said that there was even no reason to have gone to court in the first place. So let's take a quick listen to that declaration of the result by that man and see how we did it.
I respect you as a father. You cannot. I respect you as a father. Please don't do this. You cannot do this. Please, as a father. You are not the returning officer. You are not the returning officer. Wait for the returning officer. But no. Oh no. Oh. You are not the returning officer. I plead with you with all due respect. Don't do this. Please don't do this. You are not the returning officer. You are fasting. You are fasting, and Almighty Allah is watching you. You are not the returning officer. You cannot get this result. You cannot be. Fear Allah! You cannot. Fear Allah! You cannot. It's unfair. There's no. Fear Allah! They cannot return. What are you saying? You cannot. No. No. Let's go. That is the cause. No. There's nothing like that. It's not fair. It's not fair. No. You are not. This is not fair. You cannot call it. No. You cannot. You see, based on no. No. Okay, someone like APC. Support the highest board. No. Thank you very much. How?
Well, Mr. Ogunwusi, you can see, please. I'm sure you've seen this video before over and over again, but
yes,
then
I've seen it.
So this is what I was trying to ask you about. The man just said, he just made pronouncement and he wasn't reading anything. He just said that the APC scored the highest voting. So he even said Aisha Binani. He didn't say Aisha Dahiru, which is her actual name, you know. So it's like someone declaring results and saying OBJ has won the election in a formal setting. So apart from that, all this issue now, looking at what he has done, and you're trying to say that this can stand the test of the law? Looking at the fact that he's not empowered by the law too.
I don't want to be misunderstood.
Okay.
This is a fraud from the doorway to the exit. It's a fraud. But the point I'm making is this. What difference does it make if the returning officer was the one who pronounced such dishonesty? Does it make it correct or honest? You see, we have been on a roller coaster of mendacity. And I do not think that concentrating on Adamawa will make any difference. It is a symptom of a disease that started right from the very top itself. The fact that this guy did not carry along the returning officer, what kind of difference was it? Supposing it was the returning officer that just made a declaration. What kind of difference would it make? When newspapers will come boldly to say, look, Obi led in Rivers, and they gave him third position, and all the figures were displayed. And we see soldier on like a country in a stupor. So I think the issue is far more fundamental than Adamawa. Adamawa is a symptom of a chronic ailment that is plaguing the country, which has to do with the credibility of the electoral process. I mean, somebody just goes ahead, holds the microphone, the police and the DSS are with him, and then he spoke rubbish. What is the difference between that and an INEC chairman who says Obi came third, and all the evidence says Obi led in Rivers? Why are you turning your eye only on this tiny dishonesty alone? Why? It's a problem that envelopes the entire process, the entire landscape. And I'm insisting that we put everything in perspective. That is just the point. I mean, it's not that I'm trying to excuse it, but I know they will still go to court. They will still make a lot of noise, and anything could still happen from our present political culture. Ordinarily, you would think that should be the end of the road for Binani. But disgracefully, she went to court. I mean, it's a shock.
Okay, are you saying categorically now that the whole electoral process across the country was flawed? And are you also saying that faith in the judiciary, you don't have so much faith in the judiciary?
I'm a lawyer. I will always have faith in the judiciary. I'm talking about the electoral process itself, from top to bottom. The problem we face now is that every important institution has been vandalized. Can you imagine? They're even talking of 2 billion naira. If you give a bribe of 2 billion naira to acquire a position where you will not even earn 100 million naira in 4 years, you can imagine what are the undercurrents. The entire nation is being taken for a silly ride. And I do not see Adamawa as a problem. I see Adamawa as a symptom. The entire problem is landscape-wide. They will kill somebody here, they will machete somebody there, they will burn the ballot boxes there, and so on. And you still come out and say somebody emerged as winner. And it's not new, it's only that this one is acute. It's like somebody who has malaria, then you start saying, he has headache. Is it only headache that is worrying him? It's only that the headache is more pronounced than the other symptom if you look at it that way, but I'm sure a doctor will never look at it that way. In the same perspective, myself as a lawyer will never see these things just about regarding Adamawa alone in isolation. I think it is a total issue. There has been no regard at all for what the common man thinks. Absolutely none. All right. If I had my way, I think the INEC chairman should be arrested. If I had my way, I mean, somebody is just behaving the way Abuja behaved. I mean, this resident electoral commissioner is in good company. There's nothing new that he has done. It's practical, it's traditional with the agency called INEC. You will see return sheets with all kinds of mutilations. Even if you go to your bank and you sign a check and you start to mutilate it, would it go through? I mean, we should call a spade a spade. There has been nothing good about this election, absolutely. It's only flashes of decency in one or two places. That is the only thing we are holding on to. The entire system is a sham. That's the way I see it.
Well, they
will say go to court. Can you imagine that? It's only in this situation, it's only in the Nigerian milieu that people will just tell you to go to court. In the days of order, you will not tell somebody to just go to court because you know the court can always right every wrong.
Well, there are some who have...
It's like an unconditional surrender. It's like an unconditional surrender.
But there are some who have called for the arrest of Aishat Dahiru for reading an acceptance speech of an election that was still going on, so, particularly considering the fact that she is a sitting senator. She was part of those who passed the Electoral Act that was signed by President Buhari, and so she should have known the law. She should have understood the implications of her actions. Do you agree with that?
Arrest of Binani should have taken place within 1 hour of that declaration itself. Because the facts were obvious. But the police was sitting down with the criminal. And then you had all these videos saying that it was a 2 billion naira transaction. For that reason alone, they should have arrested Binani immediately. But what happened? Nothing. She's still going about making noise and going to court at will. Look, why are we so much interested in flowers? It is dishonest from top to bottom. I keep saying it. In a situation like that, it's like catching somebody at armed robbery, and then you say people are making a call for his arrest. Should there even be a call before the DPO marches on the woman and says, "You are under arrest, distinguished senator"? Hey, the system should be able to function. I mean, you have to make a call. Then that call has to be agreed to by the IGP or by Buhari sitting down in the shadows. No.
Okay, so
if somebody kills somebody, another person now, you have to first of all make a call for his arrest. Make a call on radio and TV and newspapers and any other agency for media dissemination, and make a call for the arrest of a criminal. I'm sorry at the math. You see, because when something is so severe that it's beyond tears, you laugh at it.
So where does this leave us now as a people and as people who have just participated in an election? Where does this leave us, and what faith do we have in the system?
Yes, I think we have been had, we have been scammed. And I believe that the entire system will even get worse if nothing concrete, nothing solid is done. So as a people, you can imagine that the next election, nobody will bother, because, I mean, why bother yourself when you know they will announce anybody they like?
Well, just before I let you go, we know that Aisha Binani is a sitting senator, but she was not the only one who celebrated her win. The Minister of Labor, Junior Minister of Labor now, who is also a senior advocate of Nigeria, tweeted congratulating her. The APC officially congratulated her, So many persons congratulated her. Now, let's not even talk about the ordinary people who may not understand the implications of these things. But we have senior advocates of Nigeria who know the law, congratulating her, and even one of them signing off on her, a case that she took to the court. I mean, is the law open to multiple interpretations, or the law is the law? And what does this say about people like Festus Keyamo now, who is a lawyer, a senior lawyer?
Ordinarily, in a good country, in a sane country, he himself should be invited. He should have been invited for a number of things. I can name some of them. Remember in 2019, it was Keyamo who came out and said that INEC had no server. My voter's card was processed electronically by INEC. The information is stored electronically by INEC. It's like saying that you have found a human being who doesn't have blood. And he went on air to say INEC has no server. I mean, is that really possible? And Keyamo is noted for doing terrible things like that. I could list at least 4 or 5 of them. Tinubu did not say he didn't go to school. It was Keyamo who said that he did not go to primary and secondary school. He just found himself in a university. I mean, when people keep talking like that, they have total disregard for the sensibilities of others. I don't want to be too harsh on him because some people made him SAN, and there are a lot of questionable SANs, to be honest. Just imagine Raji Fashola saying that the Constitution allows the president to have dual citizenship, when actually the Constitution section 137(1)(2) makes it clear that you can, if you have dual citizenship, you cannot be president of Nigeria. You knew it but before the beginning of the game. And then somebody, a lawyer, an SAN, just come. Is it not better to keep quiet and say you don't want to comment on that? Well, that's the way I see these things. Dishonesty seems to be the norm now. What is abnormal is when somebody comes out bravely and tries to address the real issues involved. And we are only suspending the evil day because these things cannot continue permanently. We are building up a dam which will break at a particular point. You can take that from me.
All right, so thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning. Mr. Dapo Ogunwusi is a legal practitioner and a public affairs analyst. Thank you for your time, and we hope that the authorities will do the right thing going forward, not just on this case, but also eventually.
Amen.
Well, so that's the first leg of the conversation. When we get back from this break, we'll bring in our second guest to also look at the Nigerian political and electoral setup to see if this is the way to go and if this is how it should be. Stay with us.
The 1914 Amalgamation Treaty is synonymous to the birth of Nigeria. Frederick Lugard, a British Army captain and an outlaw who struck gold in Africa, became the instrument used by destiny to make it happen. The amalgamation of Nigeria was designed for economic reasons by the colonial administration to offset Northern Protectorate budget deficit by Southern Protectorate surplus returns. The amalgamation had ad initio created imbalance in the economic political structure of Nigeria and was responsible for the persistent hiccups and the efforts to forge a united country till today. Nigeria's amalgamation was labeled as the mistake of 1914 by native northern conservatives who neither wanted it nor contributed anything significant to its sustenance. Western Spring Television identifies with Amalgamation Treaty of 1914 as a watershed event in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. If you're just joining us, we're reaching you live from StarTimes channel 190 on the DTT platform. You can follow us on all our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let's get back to the studio. We have our guest for us here, joining us live in the studio. Mr. Moses Obadiah is a legal practitioner, social rights, human rights activist, and also a policy analyst. Thank you for joining us once again on the show this morning. Well, we've been looking at the Adamawa state situation. Well, thankfully, it has come to an end, sort of now. There's a winner of the election. But before the winner emerged, there were some unsavory actions, some back and forth. What did you make of all of that as a legal practitioner?
First, I look at it as institutional failure. Because they call it Independent Electoral Commission. And I ask the question, how independent is independent electoral commission? And secondly, I look at the character, the integrity of the institution's actors. If you look at the Residential Electoral Commission, by virtue of its position, is to serve as a host, is to coordinate, is not to announce, is not to collate. The responsibility of collation, announcing, or according to Electoral Act, which is in my hand here, Section 64-65, gave it to the returning officer. And the man is aware because he has been on the job. But the problem is that when you recruited wrong people, and from what I heard, the man used to be a permanent secretary in one of the ministry in the north, and he had some baggages of fraudulent activity going to billions. And when you recruit such a people, the tendency, because you don't teach an old horse a trick, is used to eating the product. And there's this allegation, either true or not, was that a particular 2 billion was given to the institution to do what they have done. And when you talk about using money to influence processes in Nigeria, you will not be taken aback. Parent goes to WAEC and say, please ensure my son gets so and so. They go to tertiary institution and say, ensure my son pass the exam. And so when they can do it to that level, how do you now expect that they will not do the same things when it comes into election? So these are some of those challenges confronting us as a people. And so when you look at that scenario where somebody who is already above 50, going to 60 or 70, can descend to the level of just not thinking of his character, not thinking of the name and the show is representing, and then to having the audacity of going ahead and then jumping into an area in a better way, we call it usurpation. He usurps the position, is not entitled, and he goes ahead. Not only that, the scenario that should make Nigeria to be lamented that the state commissioner of police was on the seat, the state director of state services were on the seat, the NSCDC, they were on the seat, and he announced something which you call illegality, and yet he left the place only for the innocent people that came to assist them in the election to be beaten and injured in that situation. To me, it's a lamentable issue. And then it gives a Nigerian that issue. What people say, and I've been privileged to be in an airport and say, and I said, what do you mean? And something happened in Nigeria. That was the day they killed Sarugua. I was outside Nigeria, but I heard it at the airport. I said, that's what you people do in that country. So to us, or to outsider, would be anything is possible. And it's because of the platform of money. Then do you know the painful aspect? They said they want to report the man to the president. On what ground? Let me read what should have been the penalty for that man. If you look at section 64 of Electoral Acts, that anybody who do such a thing, what ought to be done according to this Electoral Act in the hand, they don't need to report. A returning officer or a collation officer, let me read this, section 64 sub 9. A returning officer or a collation officer, as the case may be, commit an offense if he or she intentionally, we are assuming that man, because he has played the role of that position, intentionally collate or announce a false result that is liable on conviction as a fine of 3 million and is meant for 3 years or both. That is what Adi is due for. So for reporting to it sends something in my brain. I said, what are they talking about? Reporting somebody who did something wrong, election was still going on, they've not finished the collation, you are not the officer, as somebody who is the state residential coordinator, administrator, and then you do this one, they say they are reporting you. So why will somebody else not do the same thing? And then look at it. Sometimes we respect women are very good. When we allow women to become Nigerian president, things will change. And now begin to look at the Benani herself. She is a senator. In Greeks, the word senator means elder statesman. So as a senator, this thing is not true. The collation has not been ended, but some people give you ideas. Say, no, madam, once they announce you, only the court can change the results. And then they announce her. And when they knew that the thing was not properly done, she ran to court and said, please stop INEC from removing me. How can you use illegality to get illegality? In simple mathematics, is 0 plus 0 is 0. And so when you look around like that, then you begin to ask that a woman like that. No. In Britain last year, a woman promised them, said, within 3 months, I'm going to turn the economic around. And within 3 months, the woman resigned. In Ireland, A woman said, look, I've had enough. I cannot continue. I'm leaving the job. The thing is too hot for me. That's a woman of integrity. In another one, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is our woman. She's at the trade room. See what she's doing over there. Are we going to say women are bad? No. The issue is not about it's not about your sex. It's about intellectuality. It's about integrity. It's about the people that put to them. Look at the process of recruiting Residential Electoral Commission. Some of them are card-carrying people. Some we know them. Even if you don't know them, last year, they were to pick somebody who was essay to the president, who have been abusing people on behalf of the president to become electoral commissioner. The whole National Assembly were aghast. Some people are for, some are against. Until the last thing, they now threw the one to the Niger Delta Development Company. And so when you look around like that, some of them are still there. So if you look at the deed I've done, it's likely to be a card-carrying member in the past who have now just been covered and the sneak of the night, he became a residential electoral commission. How would you expect him to be integrity? How do you expect him to be neutral? Because he's supposed to be an umpire, but then he jumped the gun. He came to the arena. Then he must face the consequence. In our country here, the reason why the bad things continue to be on the increase is that people are not meant to face the consequence. If you do something that's wrong, you go for it. Let's look at U.S. last election. The sitting president, Donald Trump, wanted election to be influenced and was calling name, and they said, no, sir. They called police, they said, no, sir. He said, make sure in so and so state, I win the election. They said, no, it's not going to. That is where people come with integrity. Mr. President, you are president. But you cannot influence us to do this one. And if you look around, I used to mention a particular person in the U.S. who sent some people to go and tap telephone. And when she tapped those people, and they were caught, the man could not go for second time in America. So these are the people we should serve as. And then they say, don't compare with America. Okay, let's come to Africa. The Ghanaian used to be as worse as we are. The Kenya you are looking at, there is what we call the Mau Mau. The Kenya and the Kenyatta were problematic. But today, they are getting right. Do you know why? Because when you get it right, once a man or a woman has mental soundness, then the whole body will be whole. Until we're able to get the leadership issue, especially at the presidency, once you get it, a man will close his eyes and say, no, the law must have its course. But in a situation where you have a president say, in this area, I will not listen to the rule of law. But in this area, they say, okay, let's go and report to the president. And that way they are reporting a criminal to the president. No! The police, the commissioner of police should also face the consequence because he was there. In law, we call it conspiracy.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, you made reference to the United States situation. At some point during the collation of results, when it was getting heated, the army chief in the U.S. came out to say, look, we've been hearing reports and all of that, but this is just to remind you that our allegiance is to the Constitution. It is not to the commander, to the commander-in-chief, even if it's the president or commander-in-chief. If he gives us any order that is against the Constitution, we're not following that. That happened in the U.S. But here in Nigeria and Adamawa, the CP was seated right beside this person who declared the election, the results now. What should he have done at that instance if he wasn't, like you said, in cahoots with them?
I love the quotation and where you went to. They said our commitments, our responsibility is to the state, not to the individual. But the other side is the story in this country. When a governor is sitting and video came that he was collecting dollar and pocketed it, and then the police were there, in the US, they will go after him. No minding that he's governor. But then we have cleverly inserted it in our own constitution. They call it Section 308, immunity. You cannot arrest governor, even if he's carrying somebody alive. And so when you look at the police who is sitting down, knowing fully well that this man is collecting, doing illegality, they will say the first thing that the police is going to think is that they are ruling party. Secondly, the guy in Abuja have not given instruction. But that is not the work. The appropriate thing to do all over the world, even in police state, is to stop illegality, is to stop the violation of the law. So, but here, because we do not allow institution to function, that's number one. Secondly, the recruitment exercise. If you look at the way police are being recruited today, see the dispute between the police commission and the inspector general of police. That's not the business of the Inspector General of Police. This is in the Constitution. The Police Service Commission shall recruit, promote, and other kind of thing. So when you begin to have conflicts and nobody is calling to order, not only that, just last year, the president and some maybe National Assembly amended that the Constitution says when you are a civil servant, the police is a civil servant. After 35 years, you must go. And then they now amend, and then maybe even if you are not 35 years in service, when you clock 60, you must go. Today, the police inspector general of police has fulfilled the two conditions, and they've extended it. They couldn't do that in developed country. They won't do it where the rule of law comes, because you can't violate the law because you want to satisfy a particular person. So the problem why the security agent compromised was simply because the recruitment, the functionality of the institutions, and the issue of we must obey the Oga at the top. Over there, they don't obey, they obey the law. And that's why in some country, like in South Africa, the sitting president was accused of using the state money, and he admitted. He apologized. Even when on the trial for contemptuously addressing the court, he was sent to jail for 15 months. I'm talking of the former president in South Africa. In Israel, the former president was jailed. In Brazil, the former president was jailed. In our country, mention one or two presidents that have ever been to jail. Maybe Obasanjo, and it was because it was alleged to have plotted, and then he didn't finish it. So, but in terms of abusing the constitutional provision, it is not there. Because of what? Number one, we don't allow institution to function. Number two, our allegiance. When I mean those in power, those in authority, those who are functioning in the most of the institution, the allegiance is to the man at the top, not to the constitution. Until we're able to let it know that your allegiance is not to the president, your allegiance is not to the governor, your allegiance should be to the institution you are serving in. Look at what happened when Sanwo-Olu was at one of the estates in Lagos when they wanted to do bulldoze. And as soon as he got there, he said, "Who is the police officer?" "Yeah, I'm sir." "Okay, please, why are you saying? Why don't you tell me when I'm saying?" "Okay, please." He said, "No, I can't listen to you, sir." That is the way things should work. He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Please talk to my guy over there." In the sense that he knew that he is representing an institution. But in the other polity, before he goes into that place, he will not just go directly. He will have seen the commissioner of police there. "Look, I'm on an errand into this land. This is my mission." And then they will have walked and assisted him to get to that place. But if you look at it, even though he refused leaving the place because he was given an assignment that despite that this is the government, and my allegiance should be to what instruction my God has given me. But let's look at in another way. In another way where people are sent to carry out a duty, like the days of the election we just mentioned in America. He knew that the president is the head of state, but he's not the head of institution in charge of election. He knew if he violated or listened to that government, he would have destroyed this institution. But here in Nigeria, nobody listens. People just do at will. People just obey or guy at the top are given an instruction until we're able to realize that this thing is the reason why we're on the same spot. That's why we're not able to arrive at the best we ought to have been. So until then we get it right, what things can function properly.
So in the aftermath of that declaration, sorry, there's been a video flying around about a man who was stripped naked and beaten. It was alleged to be the wreck, but INEC has said that it was one of their national commissioners who was beaten because he tried to intervene and stop that wreck from carrying out the act of illegality. Does that speak to you the level of collusion in that matter? Because if a wreck can engineer the assault of a national commissioner who supersedes him in terms of authority, now is the superior, just to carry out an act, what kind of backing do you think that wreck must have had?
Well, it's likely to be a man who feels I'm connected. I know God at the top. Because otherwise, for the INEC to be saying we want to report him to the president, it shows there must be information that is not disclosed to the public. For him to have the audacity of usurping the power of a returning officer, he knows the Electoral Act. He has been in charge of coordinating the training. He knows the recruitment and many other things. And for him to have gone ahead, it shows to you there has been a plot somewhere. And not only that, I'm going to go further to expatiate why I felt it was not his own. It's not just a one-man show. It's a sort of collective preparation. Number one, this election was postponed because about 69 polling units is yet to be covered. And while this thing was still going on, they have not finished that job. But some people have concocted, based on the video we saw, that a certain 2 billion was given. And what the police, and that's why the DSS are there, they should have gone immediately, arrest those people who offer the bribe, if it is true, and then see how they can prevent whatever they are cooking. Because the purpose is not just to allow evil to happen. That is why you take, we'll call it preemptive or a proactive measure, so as to know whatever they are cooking. To the extent that Commissioner of Police was sitting down, the DSS director was sitting down, and then the man carried out, and those people sent from Abuja to assist him, who are his senior, were also involved, and said, you can't do this, and the man was beaten blue and black. It shows to you, number one, that it's not just a mere plot in Adamawa. It's also shows there's another area which I want us to open up. Remember, Adamawa is the state of the PDP presidential candidate. And there's this issue that happened to Obasanjo in 1999. When Obasanjo became president, the people in Ogun State did not vote for him. They voted for, I think, AG that time. And then even the president candidate of PDP was using it to abuse Obasanjo. That you didn't have your home base now. You lost your election. You lost your state. So for PDP to have a recall of such a history, there might have been a process. Look, let's take Adamawa from him. I'm just looking at the plot. Perhaps that could be a reason why that do or die issue came up. And then, assuming that is not the plot, then money is the issue. And those who share the money are the ones that look away. And quite often, when people are supposed to be apprehended, and that's the area I want to go, you remember in Taraba, there was a guy who was involved in a kidnapping and was very popular to the extent that he dashed people's money. And there was this cooperation between the man and the police as well as the army. And then from Abuja, the Inspector General of Police sent some task force to go and apprehend the man. You remember the story I'm talking about? Wadume. So when they picked Wadume quickly called the army. And then the army came. Right at the checking point, they rescued Wadume and they killed the police. Do you remember the case? Have they jailed anybody? Do you know Wadume, instead of sending Wadume to life in prison, was given just 7 years? Then remember, there's a particular major. They call him Major Babangida, refused to come to court today. And what am I trying to tell you was that most of these things you see, once there has been somebody somewhere who is highly connected, you can do anything and nothing will happen. And this idea we are talking, based on the law I've written, that he's supposed to pay 3 million and then go to 3 years in jail. You may discover nothing will happen. Let's even come closer to this election. About a month ago, in Kano, Dogua was alleged to have shot some people and set them ablaze. Do you know Dogua has won election? Do you know Dogua has been granted bail on either 5 million or
500 million?
500 million. That will be the end of the case because he belongs to a ruling class. And if you do things that way, no institution will function and no nation will move. So whatever you're saying that has happened in Taraba is a sort of web and is a connection. And you remember there used to be a story we called the Italian Mafia. You can't beat the Godfather. And in our country, we have many mafia. And once you belong to the Godfather, you can do the impossibility. No minding what they love this state. But we cannot continue like that.
All right, lastly, because before I let you go, sir, let's look at Aisha Dahiru now, Binani. She's been dogged by several controversies. There's the issue of INEC awarding the printing of election results sheets to a company affiliated to her name. There's also the issue of the UBEC controversy. But the major thing now is reading out our acceptance speech on Sunday for a process that was yet to be concluded, for a process that was declared by the wrong person, and seeing that she was a senator she was part of those who passed the Electoral Act 2022. What do you think should have been done to her and the platform on which she used to broadcast that acceptance speech?
Let me start by her connection on the printing of form. If you look at the problem we have about oil in our country today, the petroleum industry, one of the problems why we have not been able to solve it was this connection. Once you belong to the ruling party, you assist us in bringing fuel. The refinery can go to places and be rusting there. You just keep on bringing because you belongs to. So the lady belongs to a ruling party. Is likely to have a company involved in the printing of the ballot paper. It is not new. It is one of those issues, but it is not proper. But it does happen in our country. So she's likely to be there. But looking at herself as a senator, she knows what the law says. But she also belongs to Nigeria. Because I don't want us to just take her out of the whole thing. When we say a system is rotten, only very few people are likely to say, no, other me, I cannot. So to her, she just felt, in Nigeria, election is war. And amongst the political philosophers, they said, in war, everything is possible. So since election in Nigeria is war, whatever means and whatever cause they can apply to arrive at conclusion, that what matter to the politician, or which is one of them. So for her, she knew. Because if she doesn't know, why is she running to the court? Haven't been declared that she is now the winner. Somehow, somewhere, because she's not likely to be a lawyer will say, look, madam, this man who declared the election, there's a problem. He's not the returning officer. They are likely, the INEC may not give you this certificate. What they will now ask question, what do? Let's run to court. Let's compel INEC not to remove you as the one already declared winner. But fortunately, unfortunately, the court declined them jurisdiction. That this thing you are asking for, this court can't grant you such a thing. So if you look around like that, and then our conclusion is that the electoral process in Nigeria has fought. The politicians themselves are cankerous, they knew, and they will do everything to ensure either legally or illegally, they will get whatever they are looking for. So until we're able to sanitize the whole system, because if you are saying, hey, judiciary is the problem, how about the executive? As I'm talking to you, are you aware that the Attorney General of the Federation stole 109 billion? I'm sorry, I said the Accountant General was alleged to have stolen 109 billion, and she has returned 30 billion there. And this government has about a month and some weeks to go. When will he pay the remaining money? The man is in his house. In an ideal situation, he should be in the prison, because it's one of, I've never had it in Nigeria that somebody stole 100 billion. Even though it may not be the one, it may be a conspiracy with himself and other people. But what am I trying to say was that as we have problem with INEC, we also have problem with other sector of the country. But how do we now make it so that we don't keep on the same circle? We need a leader who we said, I've come to sanitize. I've come to change the situation. Let me give an example. In the history of Britain, the Britons were and America. The American was once under British government. But there came a period of time. The British government was taxing the American about 10 different taxes. The thing was just too, indeed they were in trouble. They call it the American Independence War. That was 1776. A 19-year-old man. And that's why when you don't remember the story of George Washington, that was the man. He was 19 years old. And then the mother said, don't join the army. You can. The guy refused. He followed. And they were able to confront the British government. I mean, the United Kingdom, and got their independence from them and set themselves free. And from that day onward, I think it's about, they were 11 in number. I'm not sure of those who are the leader of that period. They set a particular direction. And if you see the direction, you said, we believe in liberty, freedom. And that is because of what they have suffered. In our own case, we were once under the British government. The British enslaved us. They did towards sinful, even towards the 1959 election. It was alleged and confession was made by the British government that they intentionally tailored that election not to favor the Southerner, because they know they won't be able to control the Southerner. We know the reason. As far as 17th century, in the South here, people were walking on leg to Farah Bay in Freetown for education. So the Southern people have some element of people who have been educated in Western form. But in the North, they have those who have been educated in Islamic form.
So by the time the social life came, we have more people who could be recruited into social service than in the north. The implication of what I'm trying to tell you was that the preparation for election, they rigged the election for a particular person. And from that day onward, most of those elections that we have has been either dented in one form or the other. So until we're able to come like the Americans said, we are releasing ourselves. You will see the campaign. They will call first or go to London. They will do the debate in London. Until we break that biblical code that ties us to our colonial law and able to think like the Bob Marley will ask you that it is time for you, to liberate yourself. When we're able to liberate ourselves, when we're able to come to the level that we will not look at you because you are of this tribe, but I look at the merit. The merit count. It is then we're able to arrive at this situation just like Kenya did, just like Ghana did, just like South Africa did. Remember, the South Africa story was not palatable. 27 years it cost Nelson Mandela because he confronted the power of apartheid. And at the end of the day, by the time he came, he was better for it. He said, I will not body any bitterness. And sorry, you can't compare South Africa with our, you can't continue to come with our own today because they got it right. Until we get it right, and our leadership recruitment and other recruitment follow merit, it is then you're able to look at people like Melania and say, no, I want to be governor, I want to be president, but don't help me to rig election. So if we don't get to that level, the same story will be happening. It has happened and it's going to happen again.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Moses Obaditon, legal practitioner and public affairs commentator. Thank you so much for your time on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's the conversation. That's the interview segment. I'll be back to tell you what's trending on Spring Trends. Do stay with us.